Hello! Welcome back to Even More News, the first and only news podcast. My name is Katie Stoll.
It is Katie Stoll. Hi, I'm Cody Johnston.
Cody Johnston! Oh, hello.
Hi.
So good to see you, Cody Johnston. You know who else it's so good to see? This week's guest, journalist and author of the new book, Wild Faith, How the Christian Right is Taking Over America. That's right, we have Talia Lavin. And of course, Jonathan is also
Jonathan's
here.
also here.
Hi, made it back.
Yeah, we all made it through Thanksgiving alive, it seems.
Yeah.
I was almost eaten by a feral turkey.
What?
No, just kidding.
Tell me more.
I was swallowed into the cavity of a turkey, nearly roasted alive.
But you made it.
It was a whole
Super.
picaresque, but I survived, and I'd rather not talk about the traumas of war.
I'm so glad that you're here. And we're going to blow right past the Thanksgiving holiday to talk about another holiday.
Ooh.
And it's fine. Friday, December 6th is National Pawnbrokers Day.
Okay.
Yay!
Let's get out
For all
there.
the pawnbrokers. Your grandmother's brooch may be priceless in your heart, but if you need a fast 150, there's always pawn shops.
Get out there.
When I was a baby in LA, not quite a baby, but young.
When I was a baby, I pawned all my pacifiers.
Brand new in LA, I had this really abusive boss who was very rich and tended to curry favor, pit people against each other. But then she would give lavish presents, and she gave me a very beautiful watch that was expensive, and I didn't want it. So I tried to pawn it, and I never heard back from them or thought about it until last night when I was reading through our doc. So I should follow up on that. It's
Yeah,
been
you gotta hawk that
18 years.
watch.
Wait, did you leave it there?
Yeah, it's not like you put it in the shop and then they're supposed to tell you
Wait,
if they sell
So
it.
they stole the watch
You
from
just-
you?
Yeah,
Gave him your
I guess so.
watch.
Yeah, apparently.
They stole that watch.
Yep.
Was it a pawnbroker, or was it like a dude on the corner?
It was a store in Marina Del Rey.
Well, was it a storefront or was it a store?
It was a store, I think.
Okay.
It was that cheesecake factory in Marina Del Rey. I make that mistake all the time.
Talia, we're definitely going to dig into your book. It's very prescient and topical, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I
and
hate
relevant.
it. I hate it.
Relevant to all of our conversations, but we want to create some space towards the end of the show to really dig into it. But I'm positive it's going to inform our conversations throughout the episode. But for now, we're going to start by digging in to the news.
The news.
And first up on our docket, Joe Biden pardons Hunter
The president?
Biden, his son. Yes.
President pardoned his son.
Yes.
Okay.
He did.
I'm sure all of our listeners already know about the scandal of the millennium. Joe Biden pardoning Hunter Biden. He will now avoid sentencing on those federal tax and gun convictions. In a statement, President Biden said his son was selectively and unfairly prosecuted, and he noted that the charges that were levied against Hunter are rarely filed. What is wrong with me today? They're rarely filed.
Yeah, Jonathan is also here.
I know. I'm usually also here and speaking in sentences. Not today. He left out some information on a gun form. He was late paying taxes and then paid them back eventually.
So there seem to be a couple camps reacting. There's more than a couple, because I kind of consider myself in a middle third camp of people that are either
A third wave camps, if you will.
a third wave, a new wave.
Not left, not right.
People who think this is a horrible thing, and other people who think it was the right thing. Like I said, I'm kind of in the middle. We were kind of discussing this yesterday. If it was me, I would have done the same fucking thing. Let me be clear. My son's his trial has been politicized to the millionth degree. Obviously, there's other things that these people want to pursue, that they haven't been able to get a foothold on in terms of what they're trying to say Hunter Biden is, who he is.
I mean, they keep doing investigations and not having any evidence of anything.
Right. And this pardon ends up being for a 10-year period, so he will be safe from this. If I was the president of the United States and my son was troubled and all, I probably would want to do the same thing. And it did make me cringe as well, partly because of how many times he explicitly promised that he wouldn't. You know, it was all in this attempt over the last 4 years to give the appearance of him not being political. And, you know, the same thing, this same reasoning behind the way that they've handled all of Donald Trump's many charges and cases brought against him, the appearance of not being political. And it didn't work. It didn't work. He did, in fact, do these things, the tax evasion and the gun thing. And the reality is that those charges would probably come with probation, not serious jail time. I also have always felt not good about the fact that Hunter Biden, who I have a lot of compassion for, there's a lot of addiction in my family. And I understand what this relationship is like and how hard it is for your family and how much you want to help and support them. He never should have been given a job working for Burisma when his dad was vice president. That's my opinion. I think that if we're going to call out shit like that, we have to call it out on our side.
Sure. But also, but his dad didn't give him that job. Like, it's not like...
But he got that job because he's Joe Biden's son.
Yeah.
Not because of his qualifications.
Well, sure.
The whole thing makes me want to, get a Maalox. It gives me heartburn. I don't want to think about it. People are, weirdly emotionally attached to Joe Biden and this whole narrative about his sons. And I'm like, the president is not your friend. He's not your buddy. It's kind of gross. I'm not, gonna, lie awake tormented by it. I think it's stupid that it's this, it's being treated as this epical scandal. And it also reminds me that, the press does know how to cover scandals and what has selectively been chosen as a scandal and blown up as a scandal, and a lot as opposed to the sort of learned apathy around even the most egregious shit Trump does. Yeah, so I mean, but it doesn't feel, it's not great. It doesn't feel good. One of my life experiences when I was young and adventurous is I did a Fulbright grant in Ukraine, and I was there the year before the Maidan revolution. You walk around a country, this is in the waning days of the Yanukovych administration. I was most of the people I was talking to, couldn't afford bread. And then you walk around Kyiv, and the most beautiful spots are marred by these presidential helipads. Yanukovych had this ridiculous mansion, Mezhihira, that had literally a pirate ship that he'd installed for to entertain guests on. So you had that level of corruption. Everybody knew, and I was, everybody knew that everybody on top, from the opposition to the people in power, were these figureheads, these pawns. And then it trickled down. Corruption was just a part of everyday life. I had to pay a bribe to get, my purse that I'd left in New York shipped to me. I paid, bribed, the Ukrainian, FedEx contractor. And this was just life. You bribe to get a residency permit. You bribe to do this. And when you have that as your operating principle, it's so deeply corrosive. It breeds this deep, bone deep cynicism, because how can it not, right? Every interaction you have with a nurse, with a doctor, with any sort of element of public life has this do I have to learn how to give the bakshish, the vzyatka is how you say bribe in Russian and Ukrainian, I learned, which means the take, and the following year, it was really corruption and also sort of taking away even the possibility of moving in an anti-corruption direction that that broke the populace, that finally everyone was flooding onto the streets. Yanukovych fled. His mansion with the pirate ship got turned into the Museum of Corruption. And that was a really powerful moment. But the whole experience, that whole year sort of made me realize the poison that is corruption. And there are ways to deal with corruption because it will inevitably happen. Bob Menendez is eventually going to go to jail, possibly. But the ways our system has not dealt with this poison, and the rampant elite impunity that we're seeing everywhere, from all the cases against Trump getting dropped, all of them like hot potatoes,
right,
to Eric Adams is still mayor of New York. despite him being like, I am in the pay of Turkey, and everybody knows it. Just like there's this culture where, like, to all the like shady shit Elon Musk is doing that's straight up illegal.
Absolutely.
And we'll send a strongly worded letter. And I think unpunished corruption is a plague because it scarifies you. You wind up totally civically disengaged because when someone is on the take, and when you have to be on the take to survive, of course this isn't going to be a fair system. Of course this isn't going to deliver you what you need and what you want. Corruption is poison to idealism. And so in that sense, I think I see the Hunter Biden issue as sort of symptomatic of a much broader problem and just like a gross little boil on the pustulous face of American corruption.
I think that's why I have such a strong, like, who gives a shit reaction to this one, because I know how much worse it's about to get. I know that Trump just appointed Charles Kushner, a criminal who he pardoned last time, who's his son-in-law's father, to ambassador to France.
And Charles Kushner's so fucking seedy too. Like the shit he was caught for.
Was
like
absolutely.
It's like and he's from my community. He's modern Orthodox Jewish, and I'm like, I'm so ashamed of that whole situation. But just like because when you're like a minority religion, you don't get to be like, that guy's has nothing to do with me. But no, he's a Jew from New Jersey, and like he fucking like was recording, he was like sting operating his like brother with a prostitute, and he's like so shady. It's like really the incoming administration is the shady landlords. Trump is a shady landlord, Kushner's a shady landlord.
There are so many people like I understand, like I'm sympathetic towards the argument of like, well, this is going, well, actually I'm not, because like the argument is like, oh, this is going to like open up like give Trump like carte blanche to do whatever he wants with pardons. He's gonna be able to do this and this and this. He was always gonna do those things. This pardoning, he's already done that. This pardoning of Hunter Biden for, again, like reasons where it's like, well, that makes sense. They want to appoint this bizarre maniac to go after all of like Trump's political enemies. It makes sense. And also, this isn't leading to a conversation about should the president be able to do this.
Right.
If that were the case, I would believe it a little more. Like I see like Nate Silver out there, like the Dems have gone too far. I don't know how much more I can take. Get real, buddy.
Don't vote for any Democrat in 2028 who doesn't repudiate the pardon within 48 hours, Nate Silver said.
I promise you that will not be top of mind by 2028 in terms of our conversations we're having.
The thing is about this is like a scandal. Oh my God, like I can't believe this. Presidents pardon people. That is just a power that they have. It's not like
I would like to see Biden. This move would have gone down a lot smoother for me if he'd been like, I'm pardoning people. Hunter.
Yes.
I'm pardoning all of death row. I'm pardoning like every single person in federal prison. Like, fuck all y'all. If this is his fuck it, we ball move, this is his, I'm a lame duck. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Fuck you. And it's like, well, like, yeah. And,
right.
and look, deranged maniacs have been like posting pictures of his son's penis for like years. I get it. But
I get it too.
But if you're going to use that fuck it, we ball instinct, fuck it and ball.
But he doesn't want to do those things.
Well, that's the thing. That's the hope. That's the hope that he's going to eventually, but he probably won't. And the timing of it is not good.
It doesn't matter. Eventually, sure. It doesn't quite matter to me in the fact that he goes up there and makes this big show of pardoning Hunter after we have so many recordings of him saying, absolutely not, under no circumstances would I consider pardoning my son. Like, and again, I would do it. But to just say, to literally march out there and have it only be about that leaves me feeling a little, I don't know, what like heartburny, like what Talia said earlier. And I agree. Hopefully he needs to. I think that he will, and that will help and everything. But I also like, I go back and forth on this, what I'm about to say, because ultimately I don't think it matters. I know that this just increases the division and saying like, you guys are, you got all the Democrats are corrupt and stuff. And it's like, there's no amount of us pointing but Trump, saying, yes, but Trump, that will stick. It's such a double standard and all of that. And again, I would want to do the same thing.
It just doesn't change anything. It's like there's no world where like he didn't do this and then like the discourse was healthy and like we could actually talk about things in reality. Like Nate Silver was like begging for a reason to be like, don't vote for Dems anymore, this is too far. Like it's just, I don't know, the whole thing. I don't even disagree, because it's like, all right, it's not a great look, but like what's a good look now compared to what's going on and what's coming.
And again, I just think we also just blow past the deeper, more important conversation, which, as Talia pointed out, is the corruption creep, just the pervasiveness of it, how it happens. And again, I do not think that Hunter Biden, with his vast history of really tragic addiction, which I say with compassion, should be given a job working for a foreign government. Or not a government, it's a energy company. Regardless, you get my point. He got that job with no qualifications other than being Joe Biden's son.
Well, he was a consultant that could help them, they thought, get curry favor with the vice president.
Because he's like, the vice president's son.
Nobody's saying, and I think we basically say this in our Hunter Biden episode from like 2 years ago, like, yeah, he was trying to use the fact that his dad was vice president to make some money and never delivered anything
he wanted to
for
buy
them.
More crack or whatever.
And then, like Joe Biden was kept clean on that because there's no evidence that he did anything to help.
Well, that's the thing, because like it's, I don't know, there's an element of like, this is like the most corrupt thing a president's ever done. Is it?
No,
presidents pardon people all the time.
But he maybe shouldn't have said over and over again, absolutely not, I will never pardon my son.
Wouldn't that be great if Joe Biden did a thing and then we were able to have a discussion about like why a president has pardon power in the first place? I mean, it's in the Constitution, so you'd need a constitutional amendment to take it away. That's not going to happen. Also, they don't want it to because they want Trump to do their pardons. You know, that he's going to pardon all the January 6th people on day one, probably, right?
And you have like,
there's been this frothing, like, right-wing sort of self-contained mythos of the Biden crime family and like this sort of obsession with Hunter and like, I don't know, I assume that every conservative commentator in America has all those hog picks just in a drawer.
Ready to go,
Just ready to go at any moment, and it's always been used as this sort of like cudgel of equivalence, right? And I don't think it is equivalent. Like we're about to see an orgy of corruption that's going to make, like your hair stand up, but it is.
Yeah, they're going to loot the entire country.
Like it isn't an opportune time to whatever. I mean, keeping the high ground has been a dubious strategy, but it's like, really now this is the time you're going to in the waning weeks of your administration, this is the time you're like, moral high ground.
Well, and again, like
did he fall asleep in a meeting yesterday talking about exploiting?
I'm pretty sure it's his only visit to Africa. He fell asleep.
Getting in there for some batteries, economic development. Fell asleep.
Like pair this with other like fuck it we ball moves, like pardon a bunch of people who deserve it.
Yes.
Along with this.
Were you joking yesterday when you said pardon the January 6th people?
Biden should do it and then say, oh, Trump told me he wasn't going to. I'm going to, right? Yeah. Just like fill the place with lies, see if anything sticks. Yeah. Trump doesn't care about you. He was going to leave you in there to rot, but you're heroes. I'm freeing you. See if
that's your fucking we ball move? Come
on. He's joking.
Would be funny.
Also,
I mean, expand the court would be mine, I guess. Can he do that now?
Yeah, come on. Like, I don't fucking know. Do something crazy. Like, we have this ruling, the presidents have total immunity. Like, I don't know.
But also, like,
he's too sleepy.
There's an element of also, like, there's so many things going on. The president pardoned his son for something that wouldn't have been an issue if it wasn't the president's son. And that's sir, this is not who we are.
Should be issues, but
my point is,
have been.
we've been talking about this for like 15 minutes. It doesn't ultimately matter. No one's going to care about this in a week. Biden's been like extending contracts for like immigrant detention centers all year. There's a Guardian report about that today. There are all these other things that like are so much worse than this and more important. And like you have all this media class being like, this is not who we are. This is oh my goodness. And it's like, I don't know. It's like because I don't even disagree with you, Katie, about all the stuff you're saying, because yeah, it's like not a good look and like this and this and this, but also, Jonathan, I don't give a shit. Like it is all these feelings, and he should have done this, he should have done this, but ultimately it doesn't matter.
Hey, how's your skin? Look, it's important to me that the people around me have smooth, healthy skin. I'm always peering at the flesh, assessing the value. And that's why for this holiday, I'm going to give the gift of OneSkin and their limited edition holiday bundle. OneSkin is the first company to target skin health at the cellular level. They are formulated with a proprietary OS01 peptide designed to improve your skin on a deeper level than other products. Superior cream for skin that Katy approves. Because OneSkin believes that skincare is about optimizing your skin's biology at a cellular level. It's like science. You love science. Real talk, folks. I have been using this, and the other day a friend came up to me and said, "Your skin looks so supple." So check them out. Get 15% off with code SMN at oneskin.co. That is 15% off oneskin.co with code SMN. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them, and please support our show and tell them we sent you, because we did. Invest in the health and longevity of your skin with OneSkin. Your future self will thank you.
Because again, like this was the impetus for this move. Seemingly was the new attempt at a new FBI director. Like that seems to be where a lot of this is coming from. The weirdo who's going to go after whoever's on the enemies list.
Yeah, I mean, he's already weighing preemptive pardons of Anthony Fauci, who has not committed a crime that we know of, just because they all hate him and they're going to go after him.
That's what they want to do.
Preemptively pardon Adam Schiff,
Yeah, Donald Trump has nominated Kash Patel to be the FBI director. Yeah, I mean, has he specifically said should dismantle the FBI headquarters?
Oh, well,
turn it into a museum of the deep state.
Oh, well, okay. Well, maybe that's a good thing. We'll dismantle FBI headquarters.
So that means
great.
that he wouldn't have gone after Hunter Biden if he was dismantling it.
No. There'll
I'm
be
joking.
room. There'll be room to.
There's always room for your political enemies.
So when he says dismantle the FBI headquarters, it seems like maybe he actually means like make the FBI a little more insular and a little more focused and targeted and aggressive in the ways that they want to be, again, with these enemies lists that they have, as opposed to what they're implying. I don't know. There are all these promises that we're going to do this, we're going to dismantle this, we're going to do no. You're going to just make it for yourself. That's your plan. It's not to dismantle anything. It's to make the bureaucracy work for you. It's to make the FBI work for you. That's what's going to happen.
It's interesting, because a lot of my work is tracking the extreme right. I wind up spending some time in the alternate realities created in right-wing media, and the FBI is too woke has been a running line. I think because some of the more egregious crimes under Trump 1.0 got investigated, but it's not exactly the DOJ has been speed running prosecuting the most obvious crime guys of all time. So it's really just very deranged and disconnected from reality, but at the same time it's symbolic of just how poisoned and siloed our information environments are, that Oh, yeah, of course he's going to dismantle FBI headquarters because, the FBI has been too woke, right? For years.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's just like this. And I'm like, these are the guys that killed Fred Hampton. Like, what are you talking about?
I know.
It's like,
absurd.
Okay. And like, just like more Joe Biden legacy that he didn't fucking bother to like dismiss, Trump's head of FBI. Like,
they intentionally did it so as not to seem like they were going to politicize
he's
it.
gonna dismiss but Trump will dismiss him.
It's just like, and yeah, or even like the Postmaster General who's like, I'm gonna fuck up the mail, still there. I mean, I think just like in bridging the two topics, just I think ultimately Joe Biden's legacy is that of like the sort of senescent gasps of neoliberalism, and its impotence. I truly hope that it marks, in some sense, the death of this like milquetoast, field of honor, means tested centrism that has never done a good thing for anyone without forms in triplicate you have to fill out in the wazoo.
Seems to not be helping.
No, and it's like, thinking about why Trump got reelected, obviously there's many, many reasons, and we're going to be dealing with the fallout of this for like the rest of our natural lives, and so on and so forth. But like, I think, Joe Biden was not a popular president.
No.
Partially due to the like a very hostile media environment, but also just like he stood for nothing, accomplished little, and promised more of the and Harris, by virtue of her position, essentially had to offer more of the same. And I hope, I think there's a big consultant class with a lot of financial stake and no significant reform or change happening.
Absolutely.
But we don't have an opposition party. We don't have a left party, and people are breaking,
Absolutely.
This is not a steady situation. And I much prefer a world of voting to a world of like years of lead. I don't glamorize revolutions. People die in those. And many terrible things happen in those. But it's like, so I think I would hope the Dems are burned to the ground, and then from that like fire stripped soil, something new grows.
Yeah, because there are things you can do to avoid that world, that violent, dangerous world that we seem to be heading towards of instability and like vigilante justice. We'll probably get to later.
Probably.
But we're in this, precarious, wealth inequality is very bad, and if you have a party that their goal is to sustain that, basically, that's going to tense up more and more, and cracks are going to show more and more. And you have another party who's like, we're actually going to, how frustrated you are? We're going to dismantle everything. But they're not going to dismantle everything. They're going to maintain it.
I want to leave time to talk about Talia's book. But before we do that, I think it's very important that we discuss SCOTUS and how it's signaling support for anti-trans laws.
The Supreme Court heard oral arguments on Wednesday where conservatives on the Supreme Court appeared to signal that they were likely to uphold a Tennessee law banning hormone therapy and puberty blockers to trans youth. There's a lawsuit that was challenging that law that came up to the Supreme Court. It was brought by 3 trans teenagers, their parents, and a doctor. They argue it violates the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which it obviously does. But there were arguments anyway. It's likely to be either 5-4 or 6-3. The one conservative holdout could be Neil Gorsuch, who authored the majority opinion in a 2020 ruling that protected transgender people from employment discrimination. But that was a separate legal issue, since that didn't deal with the Equal Protection Clause. And of course, people like Samuel Alito asked questions, very much indicating that they would like to let the Tennessee law and 20 or so odd other anti-trans laws or laws targeting trans youth to stand.
It feels like this should be obvious because specifically they're talking about a classification of drugs that are available to youth, just not trans youth.
Not trans youth, yeah.
And
like, yeah, you can use it if like you're 12 and you don't want to grow boobs yet because you're or 9 or whatever. You can absolutely do that. But like, you know, if you're
so if you're a cis child young woman, little girl, you can take these things to delay your puberty, growing boobs.
Yeah. And that's exactly. If you're like, I'm 9, I don't want to like go into full pubescence yet. You know,
right.
I want to be a child for a few more years. That's fine. You know, or like there are other reasons, you know, height, like people are like, okay, we'll put you on puberty blockers and see if you'll grow a little bit before you're sort of locked into your adult height. That sort of thing. There are all sorts of reasons. That's not under challenge, but it's like if you might not want boobs because of your mental health, you know, and you know, then that's not permitted. And you know, or because you're trans. And a couple of things were revealing. Like one, you know, Alito is the same like ultra conservative, but like deeply Christian asshole that he's always been. Amy Coney Barrett is like, oh, there isn't really any, you know, discrimination against transgender people. And then you dig deep into her statements. Well, you dig into her statements and it's clear that what she really means by that is like transgender people don't exist. And that's the reality they want to, like that transness is not real.
Yes.
And that's the reality they want to sort of mandate. And then of course, needless to say, this functionally will ban adult trans care. You know, a lot of the people that you know, so much of the medical profession has been running a masterclass in complying in advance with regards to abortion stuff. And you're going to see just like refusal of doctors to do any gender affirming care. This is a signal towards that. And, you know, it's just, so this really imperils the health of adult transitioners as well.
To sort of like you were talking about Amy Coney Barrett and sort of like this idea that like they are trying to operate as if trans people don't exist. And I know that the Supreme Court is different from like podcasters and conservative pundits, but as we've talked about many times in the show, there is a marriage there. There is a relationship there. We might even talk about it in the future when we talk about your book. There's a speech that Matt Walsh gave, and he, you know, the idea that they want to pretend is like, well, we just care about like kids transitioning and at a certain age, this, but actually their goal is to eliminate all trans people. He gave a speech about how the phrase he used was like, and we're not going to stop here. We're going to eliminate trans ideology altogether. One of the other Daily Wire freaks, Michael Knowles, said this a while ago too. And that is what they want to do. If you can't get rid of trans ideology, trans people do exist, and you have to contend with that. And their whole operation is meant to not contend with that, to pretend like trans people don't actually exist, to pretend like it's just this like mind virus. It's just this like idea that we need to get rid of. But if you get rid of the idea, then you get rid of the people because they do exist. And not to say that Matt Walsh has power over the Supreme Court, but it is very similar to the way Talia, like you were talking about how the justices are talking about it. And it's alarming, something to be aware of.
Yeah, although the language they're really using is not so much the Daily Wire eliminationist freaks, who are, of course, their job is to like say the quiet part out loud or whatever. Like they've been openly declaring their intentions to absolutely no repercussions for years. But the people that I frankly think have a real responsibility for this horror is actually the New York Times and their relentless stream of the Times, the Atlantic, this relentless stream of sort of quote unquote respectable, but ultimately, you know, journalistically barren and deeply flawed, deeply biased, deeply transphobic coverage. And that for years, and that has sort of smuggled this stuff into the realm of respectability. And it's always under the guise of like, has this gone too far? Is it too easy to access gender affirming care? As if it was too easy to access literally any form of healthcare in the United States. And I think they have, whatever odium they've received is not enough, because functionally they have made a bigotry against, a very small and marginalized group respectable. They've given it fancy new clothes,
a measured, reasonable civil response. Yeah, exactly.
And so then SCOTUS can go ahead and like take away the rights of this small, embattled, courageous minority, knowing that they have in essence the imprimatur of many of the nation's intellectual elite. And I think that's an absolute disgrace.
I think it is time for us to discuss your book.
While we're talking about evangelical Christians and Christian nationalists trying.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean,
How about that?
Well, it is an interesting, like, in many ways, the current makeup of the Supreme Court is, you've got your Catholic extremists, you've got your evangelicals. In many ways, it's sort of the apotheosis of a very long project of judicial capture from the Christian right that's been ongoing, like, since, the 70s. And this is where we are now. And to me, it's not at all coincidental that one of the, that some of the landmark horror decisions they're making are about gender roles, stripping away bodily autonomy. Because if you look at a lot of the internal texts in these highly religious communities that form like a huge part of the Republican base, and more to the point, the part that always turns out to vote, in a country where not turning out to vote is always the big winner in elections. This highly motivated religious minority is fucking obsessed with policing how everybody does gender and sex. Like, and they have lots of theological rationales for it, but essentially they want to make it illegal to do gender and sex in any other way than like overweening patriarchal father, submissive co-enforcer mom, pathologically submissive co-enforcer mom, and children as property. And that's it. That's the one family
Property
model that
abuse.
is permitted.
And keep tabs on a masturbation app. I mean, come on.
Sure, why not? Who among us? Talia, in your book, just going to remind our viewers and listeners that it's called Wild book? Faith. Wild Faith, Wild Faith. Keep saying it. Let's make it a bestseller. In Wild Faith, you describe a war that's going on that we're all a part of, whether we like it or not. Tell us a little bit about this war, please. And who are the people waging this war? Who are the warriors?
You, Katy Stoll, and you, Cody Johnson, and you, Jonathan. Little did you know this, but you are a soldier in Lucifer's army. Against the just and good.
I'm a demon.
We were drafted by Satan.
They're literally calling me a demon.
No, you're just in the thrall of demons.
Okay.
It's a little different. Well, you may have some demonic influence.
Sure.
But you're not. You yourself are probably not a demon. I mean, hard to tell. But demons come in many guises. But essentially, the doctrine that I kind of open with is called spiritual warfare. It's really like common among tens of millions of Americans, especially the most politically engaged ones who form sort of the most robust base of the Republican Party. And the fundamental central belief is that there's a small righteous Christian remnant who are wielding who are waging this war for God and to make America a kingdom of God. And they're fighting against the pernicious influence of Lucifer and his minions, and the democrats, which, by the way, for a lot of people is a totally literal.
Right. That's the thing. It's because we use the term demon kind of liberally, and we have fun with name calling, I guess. But
progressively.
That is, yes, exactly, wokely. But they do mean it many times. They do actually mean it. Like literal demons. I'm sure you've seen Tucker Carlson talk about the demon attack that he experienced.
That was fascinating.
Yeah, and the thing about that is that Tucker is very good at knowing which way the wind is blowing on right and knowing who to appeal to. And there's a reason why he's talking about America needing a spanking, and he's claiming to have these demon visitations. He is appealing straight to the priorities of the Christian right. This, and particularly this sort of very florid, very politically active, charismatic wing of evangelicalism that is really obsessed with the idea that, we're all engaged in a war of the spirit at all times. And you have to don the whole armor of God and make a kingdom of Christ on earth right here, right now, through policy and through acquiring temporal power. So that's what we're up against. And it sounds outlandish, but I did so much reading and so much talking to so many folks who came out of this world.
It's not outlandish is what I'm reacting to. It's just that it's not necessarily in everybody's face on a day-to-day basis, but it's so much more pervasive than I think so many people even can wrap their minds around.
In my experience, so I wrote a book about neo-Nazis, cult culture warlords. I then wrote this beautiful thing. Wild Faith.
On sale now.
The big lesson I learned from nearly a decade of kind of diving into the most extreme of the extreme is when someone tells you what they believe, they probably believe that. And especially when you're looking at internal texts within communities. So that if you're looking at novels and manuals and sermons by and for evangelicals, that's an authentic expression of belief. And so many people in the media class and who just don't believe that the world is engaged in a Manichaean spiritual conflict between Lucifer and the embattled soldiers of Christ are kind of inclined to be that's nuts and weird. And I get it. It is, right? But the part one is they think the same thing about you. That you are so bogged down in the material world that you're not even paying attention to this thundering celestial conflict around you. And also that this belief is 100% sincere and it is informing politics right now. So that many of the decisions about voting and some of the decisions made by these political appointees are informed by this set of beliefs that, again, are very alien to the secular rationalist perspective. But when we say, they can't really believe that, when everyone's a secret secular rationalist, it's a very profound myopia that I've experienced among the media class and sort of the general kind of liberal class for a long time. And the people who are the most insightful about this are former evangelicals who are just I came out of that world. I walked through fire, and I'm telling you, this is what they believe and this is what they want to impose.
Yeah.
And they want to make this a kingdom of Christ. And so you really see this desire to control politics and family, and win these arenas over for God, and media and all this stuff. Really to make these part of God's kingdom. You see it in, it's people will say oh, well, what about the separation of church and state? I'm what about it? What about it? If you live in Idaho, and if you live in Iowa, if you live in Kansas, if you live in any state with a red trifecta, you're functionally living in a theocracy. a Christian theocracy.
I mean, I was thinking that as you said it, like, what about that? I'm like, yeah, I do always think about that. But yeah, you're right. What about it? I mean, that means something to me. And I would think that it would mean something to the rest of the country, because just like, oh, your right to bear arms, our right to freedom of speech, that is a founding principle literally baked into the identity of American culture. But that's the one that's got to go, not the guns.
Yeah,
you know?
well, the Christianity in this version that we're talking about is, in so many people's minds, that is the foundation of America.
Oh, I know.
And it's
I know.
so apparent. Yeah, and well, like you're talking, Talia. Like, I was struck by this one part of your book where you're talking about, like, as an example, in Oklahoma last year, there was that bill to ban physical punishment of disabled students. And Jim Olson gave a speech basically saying, like, no, this is a bad bill. God wants this. And he, like, read some scripture to prove that actually abusing kids is actually kind of good. And he read the scripture, and the bill did not pass.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is just everywhere in these areas. And they don't pretend to not have these views. They use them to affect legislation that was going to protect disabled students from being physically punished. Like, it's wild.
So it is wild, and you're right. That's myopic. Not being able to see how much this does actually tangibly influence policy, people's lives on a day-to-day basis.
Also, think that framing this as a war is very important for people to understand, because someone who is from this world may soon be, maybe still, in charge of the Defense Department and the Pentagon. Pete Hegseth there's a New York Times headline today: Pete Hegseth and his battle cry for a new Christian crusade.
There you go.
Crusades.
Yeah, Deus Vult,
Yes.
which is beloved of white supremacist Christians, all of that. I mean, yeah, like, and he has also, like, ties to some real nutty folks. I mean, whatever, not to like insult them mentally, like comparing us to this group. No, there's this, like, Idaho, nothing good ever happens in Idaho. I mean, they've got some beautiful nature.
Built to spill.
And good potatoes.
Built to spill.
But, like, as someone who's just, like, been researching far-right extremism for so long, like, Idaho comes up, like, way more often than it should, given its relatively small population. Anyway, there's a sort of project. They're called Christian Reconstructionists, and they're building something called the American Redoubt in the Pacific Northwest. It's centered in Moscow.
American what?
Redoubt. Like a fortress.
Great. Cool.
Redoubt. It's led by this guy named Doug Wilson, and it's sort of like this idea of, we're going to build, like, a little Christian kingdom in the Pacific Northwest in Idaho, and they explicitly believe that in Christian Reconstructionism, which is this theology that, like, American jurisprudence should be based on biblical law. So that sodomy should have the death penalty of stoning to death, for example. And Hegseth is, like, all tied up with these folks. Like, yeah, he's really at the bleeding edge of the Christian nationalist crew. I mean, I hope his own, like, he's, like, too drunk for Fox News.
No, his mom says he's fine. His mom says he'll be nice.
And, you know, on his third wife, that he's cheated on all of his wives, so...
Whatever.
Like any good Christian man should.
His mom says he'll be nice.
After she called him abusive, an abuser.
Well, like, hypocrisy rarely ever matters to people whose will is power, and, like,
That's
also
what drives me wild.
But also, the power of an accusation of hypocrisy matters to the like, matters in proportion to the standing of the person who's issuing it. So that if, like, so that if you are within this world of Christian nationalism, you view people who are outside it as heathens or demon aligned or whatever. Like, in other words, like, if someone that you don't care about and that you think is an idiot and that you think is possibly malign or evil is like, you're a hypocrite, you're just like, shut up. Who are you? Go away. You're chaff and I am golden wheat. But like, the thing is, Ron DeSantis is the backup, right?
Yeah.
And that's interesting to me.
Backup to be humiliated and then cast aside.
He was obviously a lawyer at Guantanamo Bay during his much vaunted military service, which is, I think, like the torture lawyer is like the least like dignified like military service you could possibly have. But the other thing about DeSantis, and this is what I say about him in the book, is that he never met a suit that liked him or an evangelical that didn't. Like, he launched his campaign for president at Hillsdale College, which is like one of the most like they're sort of really into this Christian reshaping of the American education system. They're really prominent. He's been a stalwart ally to evangelicals in Florida. He is very enmeshed in the Christian right power system. So it's like, yeah, you either get the guy with the Deus Vult tattoo and the drinking problem, or you get the guy in like the, you know, like cowboy boots with lifts in them, who like also is really close friends with you know, these same people.
It's
so
both bad.
A torture lawyer. Well, Donald Trump is a dove. You see, he's anti-war, and he's gonna bring us into a new age of prosperity. You see.
Please stop! My eye rolling muscles are gonna get strained.
So sorry.
No, it's just interesting, and people also, you know, the hypocrisy thing has been interesting. These folks have been with him since 2016. I mean, this is the third election in a row where white evangelicals, in particular, gave like Saddam Hussein voting numbers to Donald Trump. It was 82% to 17%. I mean, that's like, that's Ba'athist right there, right? That's like, you know, oh yes, the mayor of Kursk is elected, you know, and is affiliated with Putin's party. What a shock. But these are the numbers, and it's like, okay, the sort of why of it hasn't really been a question since 2016. But basically this is a very savvy, power savvy crew. You know, since the 70s, when they were like, okay, you know, we may have initially mobilized, when the IRS decided to strip some, Christian segregation academies of tax exemptions, but we got to find a new struggle, teamed up with the Catholic right, adopted abortion as their struggle. I mean, as late as 1973, the Southern Baptist Convention voted in favor of Roe v. Wade. They're like, that's fine. Abortion is a weird Catholic issue. We don't care about it. But then, you know, they were like, okay, cool. We can reposition ourselves as America's moral guardians, handily like give a backlash to feminism, and also get this moral imprimatur of like a new civil rights movement for the unborn, and like give a lot of gravitas to our being weird about sex and race. So like the sexism and the racism have always been intertwined in this movement, and in many ways what we're seeing is the full efflorescence of this movement. But there was in 2016 this moment where, you know, okay, can we, as like the sort of self-appointed moral guardians of America, vote for the grab 'em by the pussy guy? You know,
what a week that was.
God, and there was some hesitation, and especially in a movement that's really inculcates all of its kids with chastity and purity and all this stuff in ways that like later come to scar them forever.
Lots of fears.
Yeah, like you know, and then they're voting for this sexual assault or adulterer, and the way that was justified at the time is you had all of these figures who were aligned with the modern like prophecy movement, who consider themselves prophets, and they were saying, well, you know, the best parallel with Trump is if you look at like the, you know, the book of Isaiah, there's prophecies about the Persian emperor Cyrus, who was a heathen, but nonetheless allowed the Jews to return from exile and built the Second Temple. Setting aside the whole like evangelicals think they're the real Jews thing, which as a Jew I find kind of weird. But like the idea was that Donald Trump, like Cyrus, was a heathen, but God's vessel, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That was 2016. And then the sort of question was like, how can they stick with him through all of it? I'm like, he gave them what they wanted.
He's doing exactly what
he
they
gave
need.
them. He gave them what they wanted. He overturned
He's serving
Roe.
their purpose.
He moved the embassy, the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, like specifically to like further their weird end times apocalyptic jizz fantasies.
Absolutely.
And so the answer to like why have evangelicals stayed so loyal to Donald Trump is because that's a mutual back scratching like kind of situation. He's like, I kind of think you're weird freaks, but I'll like get preyed upon and prayed over, and I will do whatever you want, and that's fine.
Yeah, he's a deal maker.
I'll sell you my Bibles.
Yeah, and I'll sell you Bibles, and also it's not like the oppression of like women and children is something that's gonna keep him awake at night.
Yeah.
So it's like a win-win. So the question of like why they have flocked to him in their millions is like not particularly mysterious. It just becomes it only becomes mysterious if you take them at their word, as much of the American press does. They are in fact the sort of moral guardians of the U.S. and the real Americans and the soul of America, et cetera, the moral majority, which they're fucking not. They're just weird about sex, and they want to be weird about sex by law.
Yeah.
And make you have to.
They want you to be weird about sex too. They want everybody.
Yeah,
to be weird about sex.
want you.
Yeah, they want everybody to be weird about sex.
And like entrapped in horrific films. So what you're gonna see from them going forward is like, first, it starts with trans rights because they're this like visible minority, because all of this like respectable commentary has been put forth, casting doubt on trans ideology. But you're going to immediately see a call for the repeal of gay marriage.
Yes.
You're going to see an attack on birth control. You're going to see attacks on no-fault divorce. There will be travel bans on women, seeking abortions in other states, as
Absolutely.
Idaho, speaking of my favorite state, their travel ban for minors going to other states has been instated. And it's like, it's very hard staring down the barrel of this and knowing like what's coming, because I've been researching this for
so long.
Yeah.
It's like watching the train approaching, and now it's here.
I would say this, and like my big like argument for like why you should read my book, even though it's kind of a rough ride. First of all, I'm as angry as you are. I'm as weirded out as you are, and I am as furious as you are. And second of all, you can't dodge the train that's coming if you think it's a motorcycle. If you don't know the shape of the things that are coming, you don't know how to defend yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we have to wrap this up. I mean, I could keep talking about this for a long time, but we gotta get this to our editor so he can release it tomorrow. Talia, thank you so much for joining us and working with us on schedule stuff. Please tell our listeners and viewers where they can find you, where they can find the book, follow you, all the things.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for having me on. I think the last time you had me on, I had also just released a very depressing book. Right.
You had.
Right before a U.S. election. So, I got the timing. Everyone's like, cool, I want stuff that will make me sad right now.
Depressing
But like
anniversary.
I said, forewarned is forearmed. Even if you're only 4 weeks forewarned. But anyway, you can find the book wherever books are sold. If you enjoy the dulcet sounds of my voice, I actually read the audiobook.
Nice.
I did little voices. I did Texan accent for Rick Perry, so that was fun. And then I also write a newsletter called The Sword and the Sandwich. It is on Button Down, but, search The Sword and the Sandwich. It just rolls off the tongue. But I write about politics, and I also write about sandwiches, like very literal sandwiches. For years, literally now, I have been documenting Wikipedia's list of notable sandwiches in alphabetical order. I'm up to my 118th sandwich. You have to cover the sword and the sandwich, otherwise you'll go crazy.
Absolutely. It's about balance in this life.
Yeah, and so if you want a piece of writing that might bring you some comfort in this moment, I wrote an essay about grilled cheese that's in this year's Best American Food and Travel rating. And Padma Lakshmi said it was so beautiful it made her cry. So that's I'm dining out on that. I'm dining out on that for the rest of
I'd be
my
like,
life.
I've peaked.
Yeah,
that's such great praise.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on. And take care.
And before I go, I have to tell you guys at home, and I mean it this time, maybe not the other times. I guess I've always meant it.
Oh, whoa.
I don't know. I was trying to be funny. I'm just going to tell them that I love them very much.
I knew it.